The gun pressed cold against his temple, and Kang Seojun smiled. Not because he wanted to die. No. He smiled because in that fraction of a second, with his empire crumbling around him and 3 red laser dots dancing across his chest, he thought of her. Yoon Haerin. The nurse who had no business being in his world. The woman with healing hands who had somehow managed to heal something far deeper than any wound his enemies could inflict. And now, because of him, she was somewhere in this burning building, tied to a chair, waiting for him to save her. You think this is funny? Park Juno pressed the barrel harder against his skull. I'm going to kill everything you love, Seojun. Starting with her. But here's the thing you need to understand. This moment, this chaos, this fire, this bullet waiting to tear through his brain, this wasn't where the story ended. This was where it truly began. 3 months earlier, Kang Seojun was a ghost. The kind of ghost that made other ghosts disappear. At 32, he controlled the largest underground empire in Seoul. Casinos. Import businesses that asked no questions. Protection services that protected with extreme prejudice. They called him the Black Fox in whispered conversations, and even his competitors admitted that crossing him was signing your own death certificate in permanent ink. But power meant nothing when it came to the one person he would die for. His mother. Kang Mayan had been fighting pancreatic cancer for 8 brutal months, and not a single one from his billions could cure her. He had flown in specialists from Switzerland. Consulted with oncologists in America. Hired the best medical team money could buy. And still, she was slipping away, hour by hour, breath by breath. That October morning, Seojun stood in the doorway of his mother's private medical suite, a converted wing of his mansion in Gangnam, watching her sleep. Her face was gaunt now, her once vibrant silver hair thin against the pillow. The machines beeped their mechanical lullabies, and he felt something he hadn't felt since he was 7 years old, watching his father get executed in front of him. He felt helpless. The new nurse is here, sir. His right-hand man, Baek Ji-hun, appeared beside him. Ji-hun was the only person alive who had been with Seojun since the beginning, since they were street orphans fighting for scraps in Busan. He was the only person who understood that beneath the expensive suits and cold eyes, Seojun was still that broken boy who had sworn on his father's grave to never let anyone hurt his family again. Another one? Seojun didn't turn around. The last 3 couldn't handle even a week. She comes highly recommended. Top of her class at Seoul National. Specialized in terminal care. The agency says she's different. They all say that. Sir, with respect, Ji-hun paused. We need someone. Your mother needs someone. Seojun finally looked at his friend. There was something in Ji-hun's voice, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. What aren't you telling me? The agency, they don't know who you are. They don't know about the business. They just think you're a wealthy tech entrepreneur. But this nurse, Ji-hun hesitated. She's the real thing, Seojun. Genuinely good. The kind of person who doesn't exist in our world. Then she won't last. Maybe not. But your mother is running out of time. And I think... Ji-hun's jaw tightened. I think she needs someone who doesn't look at her and see an empire's burden. Just a woman who deserves kindness. Before Seojun could respond, he heard footsteps. Light. Precise. The sound of someone who moved with purpose but not aggression. He turned toward the sound, and everything he thought he knew about his own impenetrable heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She was standing in the hallway, a medical bag over her shoulder, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup, which struck him immediately. Everyone who entered his home tried to impress him. But Yoon Haerin looked like she had walked straight out of a hospital shift, her face still carrying the slight exhaustion of someone who had spent her night saving lives. And her eyes. God, her eyes. They were the color of autumn leaves catching sunlight, warm and honest and completely unafraid. When she looked at him, she didn't see the black fox. She didn't see the empire or the blood or the endless darkness that followed him like a second shadow. She looked at him the way you might look at anyone, curious, professional, perhaps slightly annoyed that he was blocking her path to her patient. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm here to see Mrs. Kang." Seojun didn't move. Later, he would try to explain this moment to himself. He would try to rationalize the sudden tightness in his chest, the way his carefully constructed walls began to crack at her simple question. He had met beautiful women before, models, actresses, the daughters of politicians who wanted his protection. None of them had ever made him forget how to speak. "I said, excuse me." She tilted her head slightly, a small frown forming between her brows. "Are you a family member?" "I'm her son." Something shifted in her expression. Not fear, she clearly had no idea who he really was, but empathy. Pure, genuine empathy that hit him like a punch to the stomach. "Then you must be exhausted," she said quietly. "Terminal care is as hard on the family as the patient. Sometimes harder. I'm Yoon Haerin. I'll be taking over your mother's nursing care." She extended her hand. For the first time in 15 years, Kang Seojun hesitated before taking control of a situation. He stared at her outstretched hand like it was a foreign concept, and for a terrifying moment, he forgot who he was supposed to be. "Kang Seojun," he finally managed, taking her hand. Her palm was warm. Her grip was confident. And when she smiled at him, small, professional, nothing more than a courtesy, he felt something in his chest that he would spend the next 3 months fighting against with every weapon in his arsenal. But the war was already lost. He just didn't know it yet. "Now, I need you to do something for me. Right now, wherever you are in the world, drop a comment and tell me what beautiful location you're watching this from. And while you're doing that, hit that subscribe button. This story is about to take turns that you won't see coming, and I promise you, you don't want to miss a single second of what happens next. Subscribe now, and let's continue." Yoon Haerin had sworn, at 23 years old, standing over her father's grave, that she would never trust a powerful man. Her father had been a good man, a factory worker who believed in hard work and honest living, until the factory closed and the corporation that owned it refused to pay the workers their owed salaries. He had fought for his colleagues, organized protests, written letters to newspapers. And one night, he had been hit by a car while walking home. A car that was never found. A driver who was never identified. A case that was closed 3 days later with the words, "tragic accident." Haerin knew the truth. Everyone in their small town knew the truth. But truth meant nothing when you were fighting against men who owned the law itself. So she had channeled her grief into purpose. Medical school on scholarships. Specializing in terminal care because she had watched her mother die slowly of heartbreak after her father's death, and she had sworn to never let another family suffer alone through those final days. She had built walls of her own, walls made of professionalism and boundaries and the firm belief that getting emotionally involved with patients was the fastest way to burn out. She was good at her job. The best, really. Agencies fought over her. Families offered her triple pay to stay an extra week. But she never stayed longer than necessary, and she never, ever allowed herself to feel anything beyond professional compassion. That was the plan, anyway. Until Kang Seojun. From the first moment she saw him, something felt wrong. Not wrong as in dangerous, though looking back, she should have recognized that too, but wrong as in her carefully constructed emotional barriers seemed to flicker around him like faulty electronics. He was handsome in a severe, almost brutal way. Sharp cheekbones. Eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He carried himself with the kind of quiet power that made the air feel heavier in his presence. But it was the way he looked at his mother that destroyed her defenses. In her first week at the Kang mansion, Haerin watched Seojun visit his mother's room 17 times. Not to check on her medical care, he had a team for that. He came to sit. To hold her hand. To read her poetry in a low voice that Haerin wasn't supposed to overhear but heard anyway through the partially open door. Old Korean poetry. The kind that spoke of love and loss and the turning of seasons. She had been adjusting Mrs. Kang's for one afternoon when she caught him standing in the doorway, watching his mother sleep. His face, always so controlled in public, was raw with grief. The mask was completely gone. And for just a moment, he had looked like a lost child, terrified of being left alone in the dark. Then he had noticed Haerin watching him, and the mask had slammed back into place so fast it gave her emotional whiplash. "How is she?" His voice was steel again. "Comfortable. The pain management is working well. She had a good morning, she even sat up for breakfast." Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Or the ghost of it. Will she, how much time? The question every family member asked. The question that never got easier to answer. "I can't say for certain. Cancer doesn't follow schedules. But she's fighting, Mr. Kang. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying to her during your visits, it's helping. She has something to live for." He stared at her for a long moment, so intensely that she felt heat rise to her cheeks. "And what do you live for, Miss Yoon?" The question caught her off guard. It was personal, and nothing about their professional relationship warranted personal questions. "My patients," she answered carefully. "Making sure their final days have dignity." "Purpose. That's a purpose." "I asked what you live for." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because in that moment, she realized she didn't know anymore. Over the following weeks, Haerin told herself that her growing awareness of Seojun was simply professional observation. She noticed that he never slept, there were lights on in his study at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. She noticed that despite his obvious wealth, he ate simple meals, often alone. She noticed that he had no friends who visited, no girlfriend, no one who seemed to care about him as anything other than a boss. She noticed that when he thought no one was watching, his eyes found her. Again and again. But what she couldn't notice, what she had no way of knowing, was that Kang Seojun was fighting a battle far more dangerous than anything in the criminal underworld. He was fighting against wanting her. Because wanting her would put her in danger. Wanting her would paint a target on her back. Every enemy he had, every rival who dreamed of destroying him, would see her as a weakness to exploit. And Seojun had survived this long by never having weaknesses. Until now. Until a nurse with autumn eyes looked at him like he was human. Until she hummed softly while changing his mother's bandages, and he found himself standing frozen in the hallway just to hear the sound. Until she smiled at him over coffee one morning, and he realized with horrible clarity that he would burn down his entire empire just to see that smile again. But the universe, as it always does, had other plans. It was the night of the lunar festival when everything changed. When the careful dance of stolen glances and professional distance shattered beyond repair. When Kang Seojun looked at Yoon Haerin and spoke the words that would alter both their destinies forever. Words that his right-hand man Ji-hun would later describe as the most dangerous thing his boss had ever said. More dangerous than any threat. More deadly than any bullet. 3 simple words that would set events in motion that neither of them could stop. But what were those words? What happened on the night of the lunar festival that made Seojun break every rule he had ever made for himself? Keep watching. Because what comes next will leave you breathless. Chapter 2. The night of the lunar festival, the Kang mansion was alive with soft golden light. Seojun had wanted to cancel the celebration. What was there to celebrate when his mother lay dying? But Mrs. Kang herself had insisted. She had grown up in a small village where the festival meant everything, and she had whispered to Haerin that she wanted to see the lanterns one more time before winter came. So Haerin had made it happen. She had coordinated with the household staff, arranged for paper lanterns to be hung throughout the garden, set up speakers to play the traditional songs Mrs. Kang had loved since childhood. She had even helped her patient into a wheelchair and bundled her in silk blankets so she could sit by the window and watch the display. "You didn't have to do this," Seojun said, appearing beside her as she was adjusting the volume of the music. His voice was strange, softer than she had ever heard it. "Your mother wanted it. That's reason enough." He was silent for a long moment, staring out at the garden where 100 lanterns swayed in the October wind. "In 27 years of my life after I turned 5, no one has ever done something kind for my mother simply because she wanted it. Not without expecting something in return." Haerin looked at him. Really looked at him. And what she saw made her heart ache in ways she hadn't allowed it to ache in years. He was so lonely. This powerful man, this mystery she couldn't quite solve, was utterly and completely alone in the world. His mother was dying. He trusted no one. And he had built his life so carefully around protection and walls and endless vigilance that he had forgotten what it felt like to simply be cared for. "Everyone deserves kindness, Mr. Kang. Even you." He turned to her then, and she saw something shift in his dark eyes. Something dangerous and desperate and completely without defense. "What if I don't deserve it?" he asked quietly. "What if you knew who I really was, and you wouldn't want to be anywhere near me? I'd still believe you deserve kindness. Whatever you've done, whoever you are, your mother loves you. That tells me something about the man you were before the world made you hard." He stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and warm, like amber and sandalwood. Close enough that her heart began to race in a way that had nothing to do with professional duty. "You should run, Haerin." His voice was barely above a whisper. "You should pack your things tonight and never look back. Because I'm trying to be a good man around you, and I am failing. Every day, I am failing." "What does that mean?" "It means," he stopped. His jaw clenched. His hands, hanging at his sides, curled into fists. "It means I look at you, and I feel things I swore I would never feel. It means I watch you with my mother, and I think about what it would be like to have you in my life for longer than a few months. It means I am a selfish, dangerous man, and I want." He turned away abruptly, like he was physically fighting against his own words. "What do you want?" Haerin heard herself ask. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Breathless. Wanting. Seojun stood very still. The lanterns flickered in the garden. The music played on, something ancient and aching, and for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then he turned back to her, and she saw it all. The desire. The terror. The absolute certainty that what he was about to say would change everything. "I want you," he said. "God help me, Haerin. I want you." Later, Haerin would try to explain to herself why she didn't run. Every instinct she had of professional, personal, survival, screamed that she should create distance. This was a client's son. This was inappropriate. This was everything she had spent years carefully avoiding. But when Kang Seojun looked at her like she was the first beautiful thing he had ever seen in his entire brutal life, something inside her answered. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. "That's not a small thing to say," she whispered. "I know. I'm your mother's nurse. There are boundaries. I know. And you have secrets. I can see them. I can feel them every time I walk through this house. There are things about you that you're hiding, and I don't even know what I would be getting into. I know." He took another step toward her. Close enough to touch, though he kept his hands at his sides like touching her required permission he wasn't sure he deserved. "And I know I should keep my mouth shut and let you finish your job and walk out of my life. That would be the right thing to do. The safe thing. But I am not a good man, Haerin. I have done things that would horrify you. I have built an empire on fear and blood and the broken bones of anyone who stood in my way." And still, his voice cracked. "Still, when I look at you, I want to be better. I want to deserve you. And I don't know how to stop wanting that." The music shifted. Something slower now, sadder, like the song itself understood the weight of this moment. "I can't promise you anything," he continued. "I can't promise you safety or a normal life or even honesty about everything I am. But I can promise you this, if you let me in, even a little, I will protect you with everything I have. I will spend whatever time I have left on this earth making sure you never regret trusting me. And if you tell me to back off right now, if you tell me this conversation never happened, I will respect that. I will never mention it again." Haerin stood there, her heart pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. "Run," her mind whispered. "This is exactly the kind of man you swore to avoid. Powerful. Secretive. Dangerous." But her heart, her stupid, stubborn, healing heart, saw something else. She saw a man who read poetry to his dying mother. A man who filled a garden with lanterns because it would make that mother smile. A man who looked at her like she was salvation itself. Maybe that was why she did what she did next. Maybe that was why she reached up, slowly, and pressed her palm against his chest. Felt his heart thundering beneath her fingers. Felt him tremble at her touch, this man who probably made empires tremble. "I'm not running," she said softly. "Not yet. But I need you to understand something. Anything. If you hurt me, if this is a game, if I'm just something you want to possess, I will walk away and never look back. I've lost too much to waste my heart on someone who won't treat it with care." Something fierce blazed in his eyes. "Your heart would be the most precious thing I've ever held. I would sooner die than break it." He meant it. She could hear it in every syllable. And so, standing in the soft glow of 100 paper lanterns, with his mother's music playing in the background and the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets between them, Yoon Haerin made a choice. She let him in. What followed was a month of stolen moments. Seojun, for all his intensity, was surprisingly gentle in his pursuit of her. He didn't push for physical intimacy, didn't pressure her into declarations she wasn't ready to make. Instead, he courted her in ways that felt almost old-fashioned. He left books by her door, poetry collections he thought she would enjoy, novels about medicine and healing, even a battered copy of a fairy tale she had mentioned loving as a child. She never saw him leave them, but she found them every morning, always with a single sentence written on a small card in his elegant handwriting. "This reminded me of you. I thought you might like the sunrise scene on page 47. The heroine has your stubbornness. I mean that as a compliment." He began joining her for coffee in the mornings, before the rest of the house woke up. They would sit in the kitchen, the most informal room in the mansion, and talk about everything and nothing. She learned that he had never finished high school, that he was self-educated in literature and philosophy. She learned that his favorite food was the cheap ramen from a specific convenience store near Busan, because that's what he and Ji-hun had survived on as teenagers. She learned that beneath the ice and the power and the darkness, there was a boy who still believed in honor and loyalty and the kind of love that didn't ask for anything in return. In exchange, she told him about her father. About the fight he had waged and the way he had died. About her mother, who had wasted away from grief within 2 years. About the vow she had made to never let powerful men into her heart because powerful men destroyed everything they touched. Seojun had listened to that last part in silence. And when she finished, he had looked at her with eyes full of something she couldn't quite name. "You're right to be afraid," he had said. "I have destroyed things. I have hurt people. But I swear to you, Haerin, I will spend every day proving that I can also protect. That I can also heal. That the darkness in me doesn't have to be the only thing that defines me. Let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone even when every logical part of you screamed not to? Have you ever felt your heart leading you towards something that could either save you or shatter you completely? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think Haerin should do. Should she trust this man with the dangerous secrets, or should she run while she still can? Mrs. Kang, despite her illness, was not blind. One morning, while Haerin was adjusting her medications, the older woman caught her wrist with surprising strength. "You love him," Mrs. Kang whispered. "My son." Haerin's face flushed. "Mrs. Kang, don't insult me with denials. I'm dying, not stupid." But there was warmth in her voice, and a sadness that went deeper than her illness. "He hasn't loved anyone since his father was killed. Did you know that? 25 years of protecting his heart so completely that I wondered if it still beat at all." "I'm not sure what you're asking me." Mrs. Kang's grip tightened. "I'm asking you to be careful. Not because my son would hurt you, he would cut off his own hand first, but because loving him comes with dangers you can't imagine. The world he lives in, the enemies he has made." "What are you saying?" The older woman's eyes filled with tears. "I'm saying that I want him to be happy. I want him to have someone when I'm gone. But I also want you to know what you're walking into. He hasn't told you everything, has he? About the business. About what he really is." Haerin's blood ran cold. "What is he?" But before Mrs. Kang could answer, there was a knock at the door. Ji-hun entered, his face grave. "Miss Yoon, Mr. Kang needs to see you in his study. Immediately." Something in his tone made Haerin's stomach drop. She excused herself from Mrs. Kang and followed Ji-hun through the winding corridors of the mansion, her mind racing with possibilities. When she entered the study, Seojun was standing by the window, his back to her. His shoulders were tense beneath his black shirt, and when he turned around, she barely recognized him. The man who had courted her with poetry and coffee and gentle words was gone. In his place was someone colder. Harder. Someone whose eyes held the kind of danger she had been warned about her entire life. "Sit down," he said. "What's wrong? Is it your mother? Did something?" "Sit down." She sat. Seojun moved to his desk, picked up a file, and slid it across to her. Haerin opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were photographs. Photographs of her. Walking to the mansion. Leaving the hospital. Picking up groceries. Each one taken from a distance, with the clinical precision of surveillance. "Where did you get these?" "They were sent to me this morning. Along with a message." Seojun's voice was flat, emotionless, but she could see the rage burning behind his eyes. The message said, "Give us what we want, or the nurse dies first." Haerin's world tilted. What? Who would? What do they want? Why would anyone threaten me? Seojun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because of who I am. Because of what I've kept from you." He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw fear in them. Not for himself. For her. "Haerin, there's something I need to tell you. Something that will change everything." He took a breath. "I'm not a tech entrepreneur. I'm not a businessman. I run the largest criminal organization in Seoul. They call me the Black Fox. And the people who sent those photos, they are the kind of enemies who don't make threats they don't intend to keep." The room spun. The file slipped from Haerin's numb fingers. Photographs scattered across the floor like fallen leaves, each one a reminder that the man she had been falling for had been lying to her from the very beginning. And somewhere in the depths of the city, the enemies of the Black Fox were watching. Waiting. Ready to strike. Chapter 3. For exactly 47 seconds, Haerin couldn't breathe. She stared at Seojun, at his dark eyes that had looked at her with such tenderness just hours ago, and she felt the ground beneath her crumble into nothing. Criminal organization. The Black Fox. The words echoed in her skull like gunshots, and suddenly every strange thing about this mansion, the excessive security, the men in black suits who patrolled the grounds, the way Ji-hun always seemed ready for violence, made terrible, perfect sense. "Say something." Seojun's voice was strained. "Please. You lied to me." "Yes. Everything you said. Everything you." She pressed her hand against her chest, trying to steady her racing heart. "You let me fall for you while hiding this. You let me open up about my father, about why I hate powerful men who destroy lives, and you sat there knowing that you were exactly the kind of man I was talking about. Haerin. Don't." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Don't say my name like that. Like I'm still someone you have the right to be gentle with. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But right now, we don't have time for this conversation. The people who sent those photos? The people who want to kill me because of you?" He flinched. It was barely perceptible, but she saw it, and some cruel part of her was glad. "Yes," he said quietly. "Because of me. Because I was selfish enough to want something beautiful in my life, and I convinced myself I could keep you safe without telling you the truth. That was wrong. I was wrong. And I will spend the rest of my life apologizing if that's what it takes. But right now, I need you to listen to me." Haerin wanted to walk out. She wanted to grab her things and leave this house of lies and never look back. But the photographs on the floor stared up at her, her own face, captured in moments she thought were private, and she realized with horrible clarity that walking out might mean walking into danger. "Who are they?" she asked finally. "The ones who sent the photos." Seojun's expression darkened. "His name is Park Juno. He runs a rival organization in Incheon. We've been fighting for territory for years, but lately, things have escalated. He wants Seoul. He wants everything I've built. And he's figured out the one thing I never wanted him to know. Which is that I care about you." The words came out rough, almost painful. "I was careful. I thought I was careful. But someone talked, or he has people watching me, or it doesn't matter how. What matters is that he knows, and now you're a target. Because of you." "Yes. Because of me." Haerin closed her eyes. She thought about her father, who had died because he stood against powerful men. She thought about her mother, withering away from grief. She thought about the vow she had made to never put herself in this position. And then she thought about Mrs. Kang, lying in her bed upstairs, fighting for every breath. "Your mother," she said. "If I leave, who takes care of your mother?" Seojun looked genuinely surprised by the question. "That's what you're thinking about right now?" "She's my patient. She's dying. And she needs someone who actually cares about her comfort, not just her medical charts." Haerin opened her eyes and met his gaze with the kind of steel she had inherited from her father. "I'm not leaving because of you, Kang Seojun. I'm not staying because of you either. But I made a commitment to that woman, and I don't break my commitments. So you're going to tell me exactly how dangerous this situation is, and you're going to tell me what we need to do to keep everyone in this house safe." For a moment, Seojun just stared at her. And then, incredibly, a ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You're remarkable," he said softly. "Even when you hate me, you're remarkable." "I don't hate you. I'm furious with you, and I don't trust you, and I'm terrified of what your world might do to me. But I don't hate you." She paused. "I'm not sure I could hate you even if I wanted to." The confession slipped out before she could stop it, and she saw Seojun's expression shift. Hope. Desperation. Love that he had no right to feel but felt anyway. "Haerin. Don't. Not now. Just tell me about Park Juno." He nodded slowly, the vulnerability disappearing behind the mask of the black fox. When he spoke again, his voice was clinical, precise, the voice of a man who had survived in this world by never showing weakness. "Juno and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Busan. We were friends once, if you can believe that. Back when we were both street kids fighting for survival. But where I built something, tried to create order out of chaos, he chose pure destruction. He doesn't want power to protect anyone. He wants power because he enjoys watching people suffer. And he's the one threatening me. He's been looking for a weakness for years. I never gave him one. Until now." Seojun's hands clenched at his sides. "I should have stayed away from you. I knew from the moment I saw you that you could be used against me. But I was selfish. I wanted. You wanted to feel human," Haerin finished. "You wanted to feel something besides the weight of your empire." His eyes met hers, and she saw the truth in them. The loneliness. The exhaustion. The desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be more than the monster his world had made him. "Yes," he admitted. "And now you're paying the price for my weakness." Haerin took a deep breath. She thought about everything she knew about this man, the poetry, the lanterns, the way he read to his mother when he thought no one was listening. She thought about the darkness he had confessed to, the blood on his hands, the empire built on fear. And she made a choice. "I'm not paying for anything yet," she said. "You have resources. You have men. You've survived in this world for how long? 15 years. Then you know how to handle threats. So handle this one. Protect your mother. Protect your house. And I'll do my job until your mother either recovers or passes in peace." She held up a hand when he started to speak. "That's not forgiveness, Seojun. That's practicality. We can figure out the rest when the immediate danger has passed." He watched her for a long moment, something like awe in his expression. "You're not running. I told you I wouldn't. And unlike you, I don't lie about things that matter." The words hit their mark. Seojun actually winced. "I deserve that." "Yes. You do." Over the following weeks, the mansion transformed into a fortress. Haerin tried to maintain normalcy for Mrs. Kang's sake, but it was impossible not to notice the changes. More guards at every entrance. Security cameras in places that hadn't had them before. Ji-hoon, who had always seemed calm and composed, now carried a visible tension in his shoulders, his hand never far from the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. And Seojun himself was different. The gentleman who had courted her with coffee and books had retreated behind walls of ice and steel. He still visited his mother daily, but his tenderness with her was now followed by meetings behind closed doors, conversations that stopped abruptly whenever Haerin walked by. She caught fragments, shipments, locations, names that meant nothing to her, and tried not to think about what they implied. At night, she heard him pacing in his study. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, the sound of his footsteps a steady rhythm of insomnia and worry. She shouldn't have cared. She had every reason to maintain her distance, to remember that this man had lied to her, that his world was poison, that caring about him was a direct path to heartbreak. But she cared anyway. One night, unable to sleep herself, she found him in the garden. The lanterns from the lunar festival had been taken down, and the space looked cold and bare without them. Seojun was sitting on a stone bench, his head in his hands, and he looked so utterly broken that her heart ached despite everything. "You should be resting," she said softly. He didn't look up. "So should you. I heard you pacing. Thought you might want company. I don't want to burden you with more of my darkness." Haerin sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The night air was cold, and she pulled her cardigan tighter around herself. "Tell me about him," she said. "Park Juno. Tell me why he hates you so much." Seojun was silent for so long that she thought he might not answer. But then he began to speak, his voice rough with memories he usually kept buried. "When we were teenagers, Juno and I ran with the same crew. We were brothers, or as close to brothers as orphans could be. We looked out for each other. Shared everything. I trusted him with my life. What changed? There was a job. A big one. The kind that could set us up for years if we pulled it off. But it went wrong, someone talked, and we got ambushed. Half our crew was killed. I managed to get the survivors out, but Juno..." Seojun's jaw tightened. Juno was convinced I was the one who had betrayed them. That I had made a deal with the rival gang to save my own skin. "Did you?" "No." His voice was absolute. "I would never." Those boys were my family. But Juno had always been paranoid, always looking for betrayal where there was none. And when the dust settled, he swore he would destroy me. That he would take everything I built and burn it to the ground. And you've been at war ever since. 15 years of it. Small skirmishes mostly. Territory disputes. The occasional attempt on each other's lives that never quite succeeded. But lately, he finally looked at her, and she saw exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Lately, he's been different. More strategic. More patient. He's been watching me for months, Haerin. Waiting for me to slip up. Waiting for you. But I'm nobody. I'm just a nurse. You're the first person I've looked at with anything besides strategy in 15 years. You're the first crack in my armor. And Juno. Seojun's expression went dark. Juno knows exactly what to do with cracks. Haerin absorbed this. She thought about her own life, her carefully constructed walls, her determination to never be vulnerable. I'm sorry, she said finally. For the position I've put you in. You haven't put me in any position. I chose this. I chose to look at you, to want you, to pursue you despite knowing the risk. If anyone should apologize, you already have. Repeatedly. She allowed herself a small smile. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt that you lied. But I understand why you did it, even if I wish you hadn't. Seojun turned to face her fully. In the moonlight, he looked younger than he had ever looked. More open. More human. Do you think you could ever forgive me? Truly forgive me? I don't know. Trust takes time to rebuild. She met his eyes steadily. But I know what I feel for you, and that hasn't changed. It's complicated and frightening and probably very stupid, but it hasn't changed. What you feel. She took a breath. I think I might be falling in love with you, Kang Seojun. Against every piece of advice I've ever given myself, against every lesson I learned from watching my parents, I'm falling for a man who runs a criminal empire and has enemies who want me dead. So yes, I think forgiveness might be possible. Eventually. If you earn it. He reached out, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand in his fingers trembling slightly. I will earn it, he said. I will spend every day for the rest of my life earning it. And I swear to you, Haerin, I will keep you safe. Whatever it costs, whatever I have to do, you will survive this. I will make sure of it. Looking back, she would recognize this as the moment before everything shattered. The moment of peace before the storm. Because Seojun meant every word he said. He would have done anything to protect her. Would have sacrificed everything. But Park Juno had been listening. And in 3 days' time, the war would come to the Kang mansion in a way none of them expected. With fire. With betrayal. And with a choice that would test whether love could truly survive in a world built on blood. Chapter 4. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. Haerin was in Mrs. Kang's room, adjusting her oxygen flow, when she heard the first explosion. The sound was distant but unmistakable, a low boom that shook the windows and sent ripples through the water in the glass on the bedside table. What was that? Mrs. Kang's voice was thin with fear. Before Haerin could answer, the door burst open and Ji-hoon appeared, his face grim, a gun in his hand that she had never seen him actually draw before. We need to move. Now. Move where? What's happening? The east gate is breached. Juno's people are inside the perimeter. Ji-hoon was already moving toward Mrs. Kang, assessing how to transport her without disturbing her medical equipment too much. There's a safe room in the basement. You're going there. Where's Seojun? Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. Fighting. The word hit Haerin like a physical blow. Somewhere in this compound, the man she had just admitted to loving was engaged in actual combat, and she was supposed to hide in a basement and wait to find out if he lived or died. But Mrs. Kang needed her. She couldn't think about Seojun right now. She had to focus. Help me disconnect the primary 4, she told Ji-hoon. We can switch to portable oxygen, but we need to be careful. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. We don't have time for careful, Ji-hoon said. Grab what's essential. We're moving in 60 seconds. The next few minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. Haerin gathered the medications Mrs. Kang couldn't survive without, while Ji-hoon lifted the frail woman as gently as he could manage. They moved through corridors that were filling with smoke, past windows that showed glimpses of fire in the garden, past guards who were running in the opposite direction, toward the violence. The safe room was in the basement, behind a door that looked like ordinary wall paneling until Ji-hoon pressed a hidden switch. Inside was a reinforced concrete bunker equipped with medical supplies, communications equipment, and enough provisions to last weeks. Stay here, Ji-hoon said, settling Mrs. Kang onto the cot in the corner. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Seojun or me. The code phrase is winter roses. Do you understand? Ji-hoon, wait, Haerin grabbed his arm. Please tell me he'll be okay. Something shifted in Ji-hoon's expression. For just a moment, she saw the friend beneath the soldier. He's the Black Fox, Ji-hoon said quietly. He's survived worse than Park Juno. But if you really love him, pray. Pray for all of us. Then he was gone, and Haerin was alone with her dying patient and the distant sounds of war. For 6 hours, they waited. Haerin monitored Mrs. Kang's vital signs obsessively, adjusting medications, doing everything she could to maintain the calm facade that her patient needed. But inside, she was falling apart. Every explosion made her flinch. Every period of silence was somehow worse, because silence might mean the fighting was over, and she had no way of knowing who had won. Mrs. Kang, despite her weakness, seemed to sense her distress. He'll come back, the older woman whispered. My son has always come back. How do you do it? Haerin asked. How do you live with this? Knowing what he is, knowing what he does, knowing that every day might be the day someone kills him? Mrs. Kang smiled, though it was tinged with ancient grief. The same way you'll learn to do it, if you stay. You love him. And love means accepting the whole person, not just the parts that are easy. Did you know? When he first became what he became. I knew before he did. I knew the moment his father was murdered in front of him. Mrs. Kang's eyes grew distant, caught in memories that still haunted her. He was 7 years old. 7, and he had to watch his father die because of money, because of greed, because powerful men decided that our family was in the way. After that, there was something different in his eyes. A coldness that shouldn't exist in a child. But he's not cold. Not really. He reads you poetry. He filled the garden with lanterns. Because of me, yes. I'm the only thing that kept his heart from freezing completely. And now you. Mrs. Kang reached out, her thin fingers grasping Haerin's wrist. You're what he could have been, if the world had been kinder. You're the goodness he never allowed himself. That's why he loves you. And that's why you terrify him. Before Haerin could respond, there was a sound at the door. 3 knocks, then 2, then 1. A code. She moved to the door, her heart in her throat. What's the phrase? Winter roses. Seojun's voice, ragged and exhausted. Haerin opened the door, and the breath left her body. He was alive, but barely. Blood soaked through his shirt from a wound in his side. His face was marked with cuts and the beginning of bruises. He moved like every step cost him something precious. But he was alive. Seojun. Is my mother okay? She's stable. Lie down before you fall down. He tried to argue, but his body betrayed him. His knees buckled, and Haerin caught him, guiding him to the floor, immediately shifting into nurse mode. She cut away his shirt, assessed the wound, a knife cut, deep but not immediately life-threatening, and began applying pressure. Jihoon, she asked, working quickly. Alive. Mopping up the last of Juno's men. Seojun winced as she pressed harder on the wound. We won. Sort of. Sort of? Juno escaped. We had him cornered, but Seojun's expression darkened. He had a contingency. Someone inside our organization who was feeding him information. He got out before we could stop him. A traitor. Yes. We don't know who yet. But he knew things, Haerin. He knew about the safe room. He knew about my mother's condition. He knew exactly when to strike. The implications hit her like cold water. Someone in this house, someone who had walked past her every day, someone who might have smiled at her and brought her coffee, was working with the man who wanted her dead. What do we do? She asked. For now? We heal. We regroup. We find the traitor. Seojun reached up, his blood-stained hand cupping her face with heartbreaking gentleness. I thought I might not see you again. When they breached the gate, when I saw how many there were. I thought I might die today. But you didn't. Because of you. Because I couldn't bear the thought of leaving you unprotected. Every time they pushed me back, I thought about you in that safe room, and I found more strength. Haerin felt tears sliding down her cheeks, mixing with the blood on his hand. Don't do that again. Don't almost die. I can't promise that. Not in my world. Then let me help. Train me. Teach me. Don't leave me helpless in a basement while you fight for your life. Seojun's eyes widened slightly. You want to learn to fight? I want to be useful. I want to be a partner, not a liability. If we're doing this, if I'm really staying, if I'm really choosing this life with you, then I need to be more than just someone you protect. I need to be someone who stands beside you. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. Admiration. Love that seemed to deepen with every word she spoke. You're sure? Once you enter my world fully, there's no going back. I went past the point of no return the moment I decided not to run. Now are you going to argue with me, or are you going to let me save your life? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I would never dream of arguing with you. The recovery took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of healing wounds, both physical and emotional. 3 weeks of funerals for the guards who had died in the attack, somber ceremonies that Haerin attended even though she hadn't known the men who were buried. 3 weeks of Seojun teaching her things she had never imagined learning, how to hold a gun, how to fight dirty, how to recognize threats before they materialized. And 3 weeks of growing closer than they had ever been. The lies were gone now. Seojun held nothing back. He showed her the ledgers, explained the operations, introduced her to the men who would give their lives for him. He took her to the hidden rooms where decisions were made, let her listen to the strategies and debates. He treated her like an equal, like a partner, like someone who had earned her place in his world through courage rather than just love. For her part, Haerin learned faster than she would have believed possible. She discovered that her medical training translated surprisingly well to combat situations. Understanding anatomy meant understanding weakness, and her steady hands were suited to more than just 4 needles. She wasn't going to become a warrior overnight, but she was no longer helpless. More importantly, her presence changed things. She noticed it first in the way Seojun's men looked at her. Initially with suspicion, then with curiosity, and finally with something like respect. She was the nurse who had stayed through an attack. She was the woman who had chosen their world with open eyes. She was the person their boss loved, which meant she was, in some strange way, family. And Mrs. Kang, despite everything, was improving. It wasn't a cure, there was no cure, but something had shifted in the older woman since the attack. Perhaps it was seeing her son fight for their family. Perhaps it was watching Haerin refuse to abandon them. Whatever it was, her energy levels improved, and she began spending more time out of bed, even joining them for meals occasionally. "She's rallying," Haerin told Seojun one evening. "I've seen it before in terminal patients. Sometimes when they have something to live for, something to see happen, they hold on longer than anyone expected." "What does she have to live for?" Haerin smiled. "Us. Our story. She wants to see what happens." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her with a tenderness that still surprised her every time. "Then we'd better give her a good story." But the story was about to take a dark turn. Because while they had been recovering, Park Juno had been plotting. The traitor was still inside the house. And in 2 days, everything Haerin thought she knew would be shattered once again. By the most unexpected betrayal of all. Chapter 5. The morning everything fell apart, Haerin was making breakfast. She had fallen into the habit of using the kitchen early, before the household staff arrived. There was something peaceful about the quiet hours, about making coffee and simple food while the mansion slowly woke up around her. It felt almost normal, these stolen moments of domesticity in a world that was anything but. Seojun found her there, as he often did. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You're humming again." "Am I?" "The same song you always hum when you're happy." "I've noticed." She turned in his arms, smiling up at him. "And what does the mighty black fox do with that information?" "Files it away. Uses it to make you happy more often." He kissed her properly, slow and sweet, and for just a moment everything was perfect. Then Ji-hoon burst through the door. "We found the traitor." Seojun's entire demeanor changed. The gentle lover disappeared, replaced by the crime lord in an instant. "Who?" Ji-hoon's face was grim as he answered. "It's Nari. Your mother's previous nurse. The one who left 2 weeks before Haerin arrived." Haerin felt the blood drain from her face. She remembered the file on Nari, an excellent nurse, well qualified, left for personal reasons just before Haerin was hired. Everyone had assumed she simply couldn't handle the emotional weight of terminal care. Nari was feeding information to Juno? Seojun's voice was dangerously quiet. "For how long?" "Months. She was planted here before your mother even got sick. Juno has been playing a long game." The implications hit Haerin like a truck. Nari had been in this house for months. Had access to Mrs. Kang's medical information, to the family's schedules, to security protocols. Had walked these halls, smiled at people, all while feeding their secrets to a man who wanted them dead. Where is she now? Our people picked her up last night. She's being held at the warehouse. Seojun was already moving toward the door, his face a mask of cold fury. But Haerin caught his arm. Wait. What are you going to do? What I have to do. Seojun. She betrayed my family, Haerin. She put my mother at risk. She put you at risk. In my world, that kind of betrayal has only one answer. Haerin felt her stomach drop. She knew what he meant. She understood, intellectually, the logic of his world. But knowing and accepting were two different things. Let me come with you. Absolutely not. I'm serious. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to see all of it. Not just the poetry and the lanterns. I need to understand what you do and why you do it. Seojun stared at her for a long moment. She could see the conflict in his eyes, the desire to protect her from his darkness warring with his respect for her choice to stand beside him. You might not look at me the same way after, he said quietly. You might see the monster instead of the man. I've already seen the man. Let me see the monster. Let me decide for myself what I can live with. The warehouse was in an industrial district on the edge of the city. Haerin stood in the shadows of the cavernous space, watching Seojun become someone she had never fully witnessed. The Black Fox. The man who had built an empire through intelligence and ruthlessness and a reputation that made even hardened criminals think twice. Nari was tied to a chair in the center of the room. She was younger than Haerin had expected, mid-20s, with a face that might have been pretty if it wasn't twisted with defiance and fear. You can't do anything to me, Nari spat. Juno will come for me. He'll burn this city to the ground. Juno sacrificed you the moment you got caught, Seojun replied, his voice utterly calm. He doesn't rescue failed assets. He cuts them loose. Something flickered in Nari's eyes. Doubt. Fear. Tell me why, Seojun continued. Help me understand what he offered you that was worth betraying your patient. Worth potentially killing an innocent woman. Innocent? Nari laughed bitterly. Your mother isn't innocent. She raised you, didn't she? She created the Black Fox. Every death on your hands is on hers too. Haerin saw Seojun's fist clench, saw the enormous effort it took for him to maintain his composure. And me? Haerin stepped forward before she could think better of it. I never hurt anyone. I came here to care for a dying woman. Why did you mark me for death? Nari's eyes found her, and Haerin saw something unexpected in them. Jealousy? Resentment? Because he loves you, Nari said, her voice dripping with venom. Because you get to have the fairy tale, the reformed monster, the man who reads poetry while running a criminal empire. Do you have any idea how many women in this world would kill for what you have? You were in love with him. I was obsessed with him. There's a difference. Nari's laugh was hollow. I spent 6 months in this house, watching him, studying him, waiting for him to notice me. But he never even looked my way. And then you walked in, and within days, he was smitten. Do you know how that felt? So this was personal, Seojun said slowly. Juno recruited you because you were angry. Because you wanted revenge. Juno promised me that when he destroyed you, I could be the one to comfort your mother. I could be the nurse by her side when she died, knowing her precious son had failed her. Nari's eyes gleamed with a dark satisfaction. But I suppose that plan has changed now. Seojun turned to Jihoon. Clear the room. Everyone except Haerin. Jihoon hesitated. Boss. Now. The men filed out, leaving just the three of them. Seojun walked in a slow circle around Nari, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. In my world, he said quietly, betrayal is punished with death. You knew that when you chose this path. You accepted the consequences. Then kill me. Get it over with. That's what you expect. A quick death, maybe even a merciful one. Seojun stopped directly in front of her. But I've learned something over the years. Death is easy. Living is hard. Especially when you have nothing left. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. Pressed a number. Put it on speaker. This is Park Juno speaking. The voice that answered was smooth, cultured, and utterly cold. Juno. It's Seojun. A pause. Well. The Black Fox himself. To what do I owe this pleasure? I have your asset. Nari. She's been very informative about your operations. Has she? How unfortunate for her. I'm offering you a trade. Her life for yours. Juno laughed. You expect me to sacrifice myself for a failed asset? I'm disappointed, Seojun. You used to be more clever than this. Oh, I don't expect you to accept. I just wanted her to hear it. To understand that you never valued her at all. That she was disposable from the start. The line went silent. And Nari's expression crumbled. Whatever dark fantasy had sustained her, the belief that Juno cared about her, that she was important to his plans, that betraying everything had meaning, shattered in an instant. The defiance drained from her face, leaving only the hollow look of someone who had realized, too late, that they had thrown away their life for nothing. Kill me, she whispered. Please. Just kill me. No. Seojun pocketed the phone. You're going to live. You're going to be turned over to the police with evidence of your crimes, assault, conspiracy, attempted murder. You'll spend years in prison. And every day, you'll remember that you had a choice, and you chose wrong. He turned and walked toward the door. Haerin followed, her mind reeling from what she had witnessed. Outside, in the cold morning air, Seojun stopped. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched. That's who I am, he said without turning around. That's the monster you wanted to see. A man who breaks people psychologically because it's more effective than physical violence. A man who uses cruelty as a tool. Haerin stood beside him. She thought about everything she had just witnessed. The manipulation. The calculated destruction of Nari's last hope. The cold, strategic cruelty that had reduced a defiant woman to begging for death. Then she thought about why he had done it. About Mrs. Kang upstairs in her bed. About her own face in those surveillance photographs. About the guards who had died protecting this family. You could have killed her, Haerin said quietly. Most people in your position would have. Does that make it better? I don't know. But it makes you different from what she expected. Different from Juno. She reached out and took his hand. I won't pretend I'm okay with everything I just saw. It will take me time to process. But I'm not running. I'm still here. Seojun finally turned to look at her. His eyes were haunted, waiting for her judgment, waiting for her to see him as the monster he believed himself to be. Why? How can you still look at me like that after what you witnessed? Because I saw something else in that room. I saw a man who protected his mother when he could have taken brutal revenge. I saw someone who chose a harder path because killing was too easy. I saw the man I love making impossible choices in an impossible world. His hand tightened around hers. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you have me anyway. They stood there in the gray morning light, two people from worlds that should never have intersected, bound together by choices that defied all logic. But the war wasn't over. And the final battle was coming. Because while they were dealing with Nari, Park Juno was making his own move. A move that would force Seojun to choose between everything he had built and the one person who had shown him what love could be. Chapter 6. The call came at midnight. Seojun was in his study, going over security reports with Jihoon, when his personal phone rang. Not the business line, the number that only 3 people in the world knew. He answered without checking the caller ID. That was his first mistake. Hello, old friend. Juno's voice was silk over steel. I believe you have something of mine. I'd like to make a trade. Nari is already in police custody. You have nothing to bargain with. Don't I? There was a rustling on the line, and then a new voice. Female. Terrified. Seojun. Haerin. The world stopped. She's quite lovely, Juno continued, his voice pleasant, almost friendly. I can see why you lost your head over her. Such soft hands. Such a kind face. It would be a shame if something happened to that face. Where are you? That's not how this works, Seojun. You listen, and I talk. In 30 minutes, you're going to come to the old steel factory on the Incheon waterfront. You're going to come alone, with no weapons, and no backup. If I see a single one of your men, if I suspect for even a moment that you've disobeyed, I will start removing pieces of your precious nurse. Do you understand? If you hurt her, then come stop me. 30 minutes. Alone. The line went dead. Seojun sat frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then he moved, faster than Jihoon had ever seen him. No. Jihoon grabbed his arm. You can't go there alone. It's suicide. He has Haerin. I know. But walking into an obvious trap isn't going to save her, it's going to get you both killed. Jihoon's grip tightened. Think, Seojun. For once in your life, think with something other than your heart. Every second I spend thinking is a second he could be hurting her. And every second you spend running to your death is a second we could be planning a rescue. Jihoon forced him to stop, to look at him. Seojun's chest heaved as smoke curled through the abandoned dockyard. Sirens wailed in the distance, not close enough to help, not far enough to ignore. Blood trickled from a cut above his brow, stinging his eye, but he barely felt it. My wife is in there, Seojun growled, trying to pull free. Juno took her. If I don't move now. And if you rush in blind, you die, Jihoon snapped back, gripping Seojun's shoulders with both hands. Then she dies anyway. Is that what you want? The words landed hard. For the first time since the attack at the mall, since he had watched Haerin get dragged into a black van screaming his name, Seojun froze. The mall. The image replayed like a nightmare on loop. The polished marble floor. The crowd. The laughter. And then him. The man who had kicked her. Her ex. The same man who had once called her worthless. Poor. Disposable. The man who had laughed when she fell. Unaware that the woman he humiliated in public was now Kang Seojun's wife. Unaware that every camera in the mall had caught his face. Unaware that his life had already ended the moment his foot touched her ribs. But that was later. Right now, Haerin was gone. Taken by Park Juno as leverage. As bait. As punishment. Seojun slowly unclenched his fists. His voice, when he spoke, was terrifyingly calm. Talk. Jihoon exhaled, relieved. Juno wants you alive. If he wanted her dead, she'd already be dead. He took her to draw you out, to break you, to make you choose wrong. Seojun's jaw tightened. Then we make him think I already have. Haerin came to with the taste of iron in her mouth and a pounding headache. Her wrists were bound. Her ankles too. She was seated on a metal chair, zip-tied tight enough to cut circulation. The room was large, cold, unfinished. A warehouse. Salt and oil hung in the air. She lifted her head slowly. Across from her, Park Juno sat casually on a crate, sipping tea like they were meeting for a friendly chat. You're calmer than I expected, he said, observing her. Most women cry by now. I'm not most women, Haerin replied hoarsely. Juno smiled. No. You're much more interesting. You broke him. Her heart clenched, but she didn't show it. If you wanted Seojun, you could have just come for him, she said. This proves you're afraid of him. Juno laughed. Afraid? No. Fascinated? Yes. He built an empire on control. And you, he leaned forward. You made him human. He stood and circled her slowly. You know what I love most about this, he continued. Your past. Haerin stiffened. Juno stopped behind her chair. The poverty. The abandonment. The man who kicked you at the mall today, did you see his face when you didn't beg? When you didn't cry? Her breath caught despite herself. I did my research, Juno went on. Your life was small. Painful. Forgettable. And now look at you. Married to the most dangerous man in Korea. Loved like a queen. He leaned down, whispering near her ear. Men like Seojun don't get happy endings. Haerin lifted her chin. Neither do men like you. Juno straightened, amused. We'll see. Seojun walked into Park Juno's trap exactly as planned. Alone. No visible weapons. Hands empty. The warehouse doors creaked open as he stepped inside. Juno clapped slowly. There he is. The great black fox. You came without your army. I don't need one, Seojun replied evenly. His eyes went straight to Haerin. She was bruised, but conscious. Alive. That was all that mattered. Juno gestured. On your knees. Seojun didn't hesitate. The sound of his knees hitting concrete echoed through the space. Haerin's eyes widened. Seojun, no. Juno laughed. Oh, this is beautiful. Look at him, nurse. The king kneels. Seojun didn't look away from her. His voice was steady. Are you hurt? I'm fine, she whispered. Don't do this. He smiled at her. A real smile. The one she loved. I promised I'd protect you, he said softly. This is me keeping that promise. Juno raised a gun, pressing it to Seojun's head. Any last words? Yes, Seojun said. You lost. Juno frowned. What? That was when the lights went out. Gunshots exploded. Chaos erupted. Jihoon's voice thundered through the darkness. Now. Seojun moved instantly, tackling Juno as bullets tore through the air. The gun clattered away. Men screamed. Shadows fell. Haerin struggled against her restraints as Jihoon slid in beside her, cutting the ties. Can you run? He asked. Yes. Then don't stop. Across the warehouse, Seojun and Juno crashed into each other, fists flying, years of hatred exploding into raw violence. You think love makes you weak, Seojun snarled, slamming Juno into a steel beam. It made me unstoppable. Juno spat blood and laughed. You chose her over power. No, Seojun corrected, landing the final blow. I chose both. The police sirens grew louder. Juno collapsed, unconscious. Defeated. Finished. The next day, the footage went viral. The mall. The kick. The man's face. The truth. Who she was. Who her husband was. The apology came too late. The regret meant nothing. Seojun didn't touch him. He didn't have to. Society did the rest. Careers ended. Doors closed. Friends vanished. As for Haerin, she stood on a balcony weeks later, sunlight warming her face, Seojun's arms wrapped around her from behind. You could have walked away, he said quietly. After everything. The lies. The danger. She leaned back into him. I didn't marry a perfect man. I married a man who chose me. Again and again. Below them, Mrs. Kang laughed softly, healthier than anyone had predicted, watching the garden bloom. Seojun kissed Haerin's temple. You saved me. She turned to face him, eyes steady. No. You chose to be saved. Let me ask you something before this story ends. If you were in her place, knowing the past, the danger, the truth, would you have stayed or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've made it this far, don't lie to yourself, you were moved. Stories like this survive because people share them. Subscribe. Share it with someone who believes love can rise from the darkest places. Because sometimes, the woman everyone thought was nothing becomes the reason a king survives. And sometimes, the man the world calls a monster lays his empire at her feet.